The tension between Iran and United States is tightening again, and the world is watching the same narrow strip of water that has shaped global energy for decades, Strait of Hormuz. As the United States increases its military presence in the Persian Gulf, according to reports, the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln is positioned nearly 150 miles off the coast of Oman, maintaining a deliberate distance while still signaling unmistakable presence. Meanwhile, across the water, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy has launched what it calls the Smart Control of the Strait of Hormuz exercises, a pointed demonstration that Tehran is actively preparing for any escalation. Iran has issued a stark warning. If open conflict erupts, the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow corridor through which nearly one-fifth of the world's oil passes, will be closed. Jalal Dagani, Secretary of Iran's Strategic Council on Foreign Relations, said, "In the event of war, energy security will be endangered, and the Strait of Hormuz will not remain open." This is not just a theoretical threat. The strait, at its narrowest, measures just 40 kilometers across, a tiny gateway carrying enormous global stakes. Tensions between Washington and Tehran, particularly over Iran's nuclear program, have driven the U.S. to steadily reinforce its military footprint in the region. Diplomatic negotiations continue. But on February 9, 2026, the U.S. Maritime Administration instructed all American-flagged commercial vessels to steer as far as possible from Iranian waters. The market reacted instantly. Oil prices jumped over 1% before stabilizing the following day. Sir Alex Younger, former head of MI6, explained the stakes during earlier crises. Closing the Strait of Hormuz would undoubtedly create an immense economic problem because it would send oil prices soaring. Where is the Strait of Hormuz? It forms a maritime passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, situated between Iran and Oman. At the entrance and exit, it stretches about 50 kilometers, but the center narrows sharply to just 40 kilometers. Only the central deep channel is navigable for the largest tankers, meaning that supertankers must pass through a corridor roughly 10 kilometers wide. This corridor has been a hotspot before. During the Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988, both sides targeted each other's oil shipments in what became known as the Tanker War. It is also the reason why the U.S. Navy, stationed in Bahrain, has long been tasked with protecting commercial traffic. How much oil travels through the strait? The scale is staggering. 1/5 of the world's oil moves through this single choke point. Crude from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Iran all passes here, as well as LNG from Qatar, the world's largest exporter of liquefied natural gas. Vortexa, a freight analytics firm, reports that last year, more than 20 million barrels per day of crude and other fuels moved through the strait, representing roughly $600 billion in maritime energy trade annually. Most of the exports from Iran and other OPEC nations, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, UAE, head to Asia via this corridor. Any disruption, even temporary, would immediately ripple through global oil markets. Analysts warn a direct confrontation between Iran and the United States could trigger consequences far beyond price volatility. How could Iran close the strait? A 2012 U.S. Congressional Research Service report outlined a gradual closure strategy. Iran could announce new restrictions on navigation, threaten inspections or seizures of vessels, fire warning shots, or even target selected commercial ships. More aggressively, sea mines could be deployed. Submarines and anti-ship missiles could target military or commercial vessels. Experts believe the most effective method would involve Iran's fast attack boats and submarines laying mines, obstructing nearly 3,000 ships passing each month. Iran's regular navy and the IRGC Navy could strike foreign warships, though large Iranian ships would be easy targets for U.S. airstrikes in retaliation. Fast boats are often armed with anti-ship missiles. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iran used silkworm missiles against oil tankers and scattered sea mines across Gulf waters. One mine damaged the USS Samuel B. Roberts, prompting a U.S. retaliatory strike. Iran never fully blocked the strait, but shipping insurance rates spiked sharply. Major powers have repeatedly declared they will not allow Tehran to use geography as leverage over global energy supplies. Most experts agree Iran could temporarily shut the strait, but the United States and its allies could reopen it by force. What happens if the strait is closed? Disruption would impact 20% of global oil supply. Saudi Arabia alone exports roughly 6 million barrels per day through Hormuz, more than any neighboring nation. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, in 2024, 84% of crude and condensate, 83% of LNG passing through Hormuz went to Asian markets. Largest importers include China, India, Japan, and South Korea. The United States imported around 500,000 barrels per day through the strait, approximately 7% of its crude imports, and 2% of total petroleum consumption. U.S. dependence on Gulf crude has dropped sharply, thanks to domestic production and imports from Canada. Europe receives less than 1 million barrels per day from Hormuz. In short, Gulf Arab states and Asian buyers would bear the heaviest impact, not the United States or Europe, which are politically aligned with Israel in the latest conflict. China is particularly exposed. Much of the oil passing through the strait reaches China, including discounted Iranian crude, a vital lifeline helping Tehran cope with sanctions. In 2024, China purchased nearly 90% of Iran's oil exports. Firuz Abadi, Secretary of Iran's Strategic Council, warned, if the strait is closed, China will be the first to suffer. This is why diplomatic talks are crucial for Beijing as well. Anas al-Haji, an energy consultant, added, shutting the Strait of Hormuz would harm Iran's allies more than its adversaries. They are unlikely to take action that backfires first on themselves. Are there alternatives? The ongoing threat has spurred Gulf nations to develop bypass routes. Saudi Arabia, in 2019, temporarily repurposed a natural gas pipeline to carry crude. UAE built a pipeline connecting internal reserves to Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, capacity 1.5 million barrels per day. Iran inaugurated the Ghora-Jask pipeline in 2021, capable of 350,000 barrels per day, though reportedly underused. The EIA estimates that UAE and Saudi pipelines could bypass Hormuz with up to 2.6 million barrels per day of unused capacity. Past conflicts in the strait. This narrow waterway has been a theater of confrontation for decades. 1988, a U.S. warship shot down an Iranian passenger jet, killing 290. Washington cited misidentification. Iran claimed it was deliberate. 2008, Iranian boats approached U.S. warships. IRGC warned that any attack would trigger retaliation against U.S. vessels. 2010, a Japanese oil tanker was struck in the strait by a group linked to al-Qaeda. 2012, Tehran threatened closure after U.S. and European sanctions cut into oil revenue. 2018, Iranian leaders hinted that oil shipments through Hormuz could be disrupted if exports were blocked. The message is clear. Hormuz is not just a passage, it is a strategic lifeline. Any escalation here could ripple across the globe, economically, politically, and strategically. Thank you for watching. What's your take on this conflict and the stakes of the Strait of Hormuz? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to US Mag for more in-depth stories.